Welcome back. Today I'll be talking about another single set commander, Katara the Fearless. This is based on the Avatar set, and the restrictions are all cards and bonus cards and supplemental products around that set only. So I chose Ally because I felt that Katara had a very powerful ability. Katara the Fearless is a banned commander. She's a 3/3 with a very useful ability. If a triggered ability of an ally you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. The whole idea of the deck is to play powerful effects that are triggered abilities, like enter the battlefield whenever you cast something and so on. And they are all allies, and that makes that ability trigger an extra time. There were some supplemental products, so we did get some rocks and some mana fixing. So let's take a quick look at those first. We have Soul Ring and Arcane Signet in the Avatar art, very pretty cards. Then we have Bender's Water Skin, which adds 1 mana of any color, and more importantly, untap this artifact during each other player's untap step. White Lotus Style, 4 mana artifact that enters tapped. You can tap it to add X mana of any one color, where X is the greatest number of creatures you control that have a creature type in common. We will be having a lot of allies, so this can easily tap for 3, 4, 5 mana. Then we have a Mana Dork, Hermetic Herbalist. It's a Simic creature, 2/3. It adds 1 mana of any color. It also adds 2 mana in any combination of colors, but only for lessened spells. Animal Attendant is another Mana Dork. Great Divide Guide is an ally that says each land an ally you control has, tap it to add 1 mana of any color. This is very good. Then we have a lesson spell, Shared Roots. Search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Then you have Cycle of Renewal, which is an instant lesson. Sacrifice a land, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Then we have an enchantment, Earthbender's Ascension. When this enters, Earthbend 2, then search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. And then it also has a landfall ability. When a land enters under your control, put a quest counter on this enchantment. When you do, if it has 4 or more quest counters, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, and it gains trample. Though we don't do too much of earthbending, the ramp was good enough to include this card. Next, let us look at the ally package that has triggered abilities. So we have Aang, the Last Airbender, 4 mana 3/2 flyer. When it enters, airbend up to 1 other target non-land permanent. Whenever you cast a lesson spell, Aang gains lifelink until end of turn. The airbend mechanic says exile a permanent, non-land permanent in this case. So you exile it. When it is exiled, its owner may cast it for 2 rather than its mana cost. So this can remove pesky creatures, enchantments, artifacts on the opponent side, but many times you're going to do it for our own creatures and cast them back for cheap. More importantly, Aang will trigger twice, so you get to exile 2 things. And there are multiple such airbend effects here, so you can easily loop 2 of these together and try to take out a bunch of stuff on the opponent's side. So it's a very powerful combination that is possible with the airbend and the Katara's double triggers. Aang Swift Savior is a flash flyer. When it enters, airbend up to 1 other target creature or spell. You will notice that the previous one was 1 non-land permanent. This one is creature or spell, which is why it's important to know that airbend is not always going to say non-land permanent. So watch out for that. And then if you waterbend it, you can transform Aang. It is a 5/5 on the backside, which has reach trample, and whenever Aang and La attack, put a +1/+1 counter on each tapped creature you control. So provides a big buff for the team. Then we have Aang Airbending Master, 5 mana 4/4. When it enters, airbend another target creature. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control leave the battlefield without dying, that is if they get airbent for example, you get an experience counter. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 white ally creature token for each experience counter you have. You can see that this has two triggered abilities that will trigger twice. One is the airbend and the other one is the creation of the tokens if you have experience counters. So you will get double the tokens. Appa, Steadfast Guardian, 4 mana 3/4 with flash and flying. When it enters, airbend any number of other target non-land permanents you control. So this can be very powerful effect to protect your team against a board wipe, for example. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, create a 1/1 white ally creature token. Again, this will also trigger twice. Appa, Loyal Sky Bison, 6 mana 4/4 flying. When it enters or attacks, give one creature flying until end of turn or airbend another target non-land permanent you control. So you can see the theme here. Earth Kingdom Jailer is a 3 mana 3/3. When it enters, exile up to one target artifact, creature or enchantment an opponent controls with CMC 3 or greater until this creature leaves the battlefield. So this can exile two things. Aang and Katara. Whenever Aang and Katara enter or attack, create X 1/1 white ally creature tokens, where X is the number of tapped artifacts or creatures you control. So if you're attacking or if you have used your rocks, you get to create X tokens and then X again. Invasion Reinforcements is a 2 mana 1/1 flash creature. When this creature enters, create a 1/1 white ally creature token. Earth King's Lieutenant is a 2 mana 1/1 that is really powerful. It has trample. When it enters, put a +1/+1 counter on each other ally you control. Whenever another ally you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on this. Again, two triggers. Appa, Aang's Companion, 4 mana 2/4 with flying. Whenever it attacks, another target creature gains flying until end of turn. Jet, Rebel Leader, is a 3/4 for 4 mana. Whenever Jet attacks, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature with CMC 3 or less onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Put the rest on the bottom. So you can do this twice with Katara and cheat in some cheap creatures for free. Katara, Heroic Healer, 5 mana 2/3 with lifelink. When she enters, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control. Katara, Water Tribe's Hope, is a 5 mana Azorius creature, very powerful effect. She has Vigilance. When she enters, create a 1/1 white ally. Then she has a Waterbend ability, X colorless mana. Creatures you control have base power and toughness XX. Until end of turn, X cannot be 0. Waterbend is an ability which says, while playing an Waterbend cast, you can tap your artifacts and creatures to help each one of them pay for 1. So you can use a bunch of maybe your summon sick tokens to get huge mana boost and give a huge buff to the rest of your team. Katara is one of the ways to get a very powerful army when you're swinging in with a bunch of allies. Momo, Rambunctious Rascal. It's a 3 mana 1/1 with flying. When he enters, he deals 4 damage to target tapped creature and opponent control. Suki, Courageous Rescuer, 3 mana 2/4. Has a bit of an anthem effect. Other creatures you control get +1/+0. Whenever another permanent you control leaves during the battlefield, during your turn, create a 1/1 white ally creature token. There is one interesting thing to note here. It explicitly says this ability triggers only once each turn. This is not replaced by Katara's effect. So Suki actually only triggers once even with Katara on the battlefield. Suki, Kyoshi Warrior, 4 mana, star and 4, where star is the power equal to the number of creatures you control. Whenever Suki attacks, create a 1/1 white ally creature token that is tapped and attacking. Sokka, Lateral Strategist, has Vigilance. When it and another creature attack, draw a card. South Pole Voyager is an interesting card. It's a 2 mana 2/2. When this creature or another ally you control enters, you gain 1 life. If this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn, draw a card. So South Pole Voyager will trigger twice with Katara on the battlefield just by entering itself, and you will gain a life and draw a card, but you won't draw any more cards after. But you do continue to gain life twice. Katara, Waterbending Master, 1 and 1 blue for a 1/3, which says whenever you cast a spell during an opponent's turn, you get an experience counter. Basically, instant flash effects will help you, and there is one other interesting card later that can help to trigger Katara. When she attacks, you may draw a card for each experience counter you have. So she can draw a lot of cards with the other Katara commander out there. The blue spirit goes well with the previous card we saw. For 4 mana, it's a 2/4 ally. You may cast the first creature spell you cast each turn as though it has flash. So on each of your opponent's turn, if you have the mana, you can cast it and gain experience counters with the other Katara. Whenever a non-token creature you control enters, draw a card. Enters during combat, draw a card. Earth King is a very powerful card in this deck. It has won me games. For 4 mana, it's a 2/2. When it enters, create a 4/4 green bear token. With Katara, it'll make 2 of these bears. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control with power 4 or greater attack, search your library for up to that many basic land cards and put them onto the battlefield, tapped. This is very good. With just the 2 bears, you ramp right away on your next turn, but this deck can make a bunch of other 4/4s on attack as well. So I have been able to play 3-4 lands sometimes off of one turn. Haru, Hidden Talent, is a 2 mana 1/1. Whenever another ally you control enters, Earthbend once. Toph, Earthbending Master, is a 4 mana 2/4. Has a landfall. Whenever a land enters, you get an experience counter. Whenever you attack, Earthbend X, where X is the number of experience counters you have. I want to take a pause to point out that these experience triggers will also trigger twice. And more importantly, they count towards each other, because the experience counter applies to you, the player, and not to the creature. So Katara's experience counters can help with Toph's ability and vice versa. So there is a small experience counter sub-theme in the deck. Tylee, Chi Blocker, is a 3 mana 2/1 with flash and prowess. The prowess is not very useful in this deck. When Tylee enters, tap up to 1 target creature. It does not untap as long as you control Tylee. This can tap up to 2 pesky creatures if Katara is out. Aang at the Crossroads. When Aang enters, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature with CMC 4 or less onto the battlefield. When another creature you control leaves the battlefield, transform Aang at the beginning of the next upkeep. So you can cheat and cheap things there. And then on the flip side, it is Aang Destined Savior, a 4/4 flyer which says land creatures you control have vigilance. So any of your earth-bent lands will have vigilance. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, earth-bend 2. So you will notice that even though it's not very much there, there is a little bit of earth bending in the deck as well. The Mechanist Aerial Artisan. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a clue token. Until end of turn, target artifact token you control becomes a 3/1 construct artifact creature with flying. Next up, a few more notable cards. Princess Yui is an ally, 3 mana 3/2. When she dies, if she was a non-land creature, return this card back onto the battlefield tabbed. She is a land named Moon and gains add 1 colorless. And then she also has an ability Scry 2, which is also carried over to the land. The Duke, Rebel Sentry, is a 0/1. He enters with a +1/+1 counter on him. You can tap him to remove a counter, put it on another creature you control, and it gains hexproof. So a good way to protect one of your powerful creatures or your commander. Earth Kingdom Protectors, 1 mana 1/1 vigilance. You can sack it to give another target ally indestructible until end of turn. White Lotus Reinforcement is vigilance, and other allies you control get +1/+1. So a good anthem effect there. Inspired Insurgent is removal on a stick. For 1 creature, 1 mana, you can sacrifice this creature, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Hakoda is a 4 mana 3/5. He has vigilance. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may cast ally spells from the top of your library. Sacrifice Hakoda. Creatures you control get +0/+5 and gain indestructible until end of turn. So this is a very powerful card. And then finally we have a non-ally, Suki of the Kyoshi Warriors. This is a skin over Captain Sisei, 2 and green-white, and she is a tutor. You can tap it, search your library for a legendary card, reveal that card, put it in your hand, then shuffle. What I have noticed is that the effect of Suki is so good with so many legendaries that she tends to eat removal over Katara. So at worst, she protects your commander. Next up, let's look at some instant spells. Lifelong Friendship is a reskin of Eladamri's Call. It's a very beautiful artwork with Aang and Appa there. It's an instant which says search your library for a creature card, reveal it and put it in your hand and then shuffle. So you can go find one of your best cards that you need to deal with the situation as it unfolds. Brought Back is 2 white pips for an instant that says choose up to 2 target permanent cards in your graveyard and return them to the battlefield tapped. The permanents need to be put into the graveyard that turn. Then we have a lesson spell, Accumulate Wisdom. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of those in your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. But you get to put all 3 of them if you have 3 or more lesson cards in your graveyard. We have barely enough lessons to trigger this, but it is rare. Then we have Earth Shape, which is 2 and 1 white for an instant that says Earthbend 3. Then each creature you control with power less than or equal to that land's power gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Also, you gain hexproof until end of turn. Katara's Reversal is a counter spell. It can counter up to 4 target spells and or abilities and untap up to 4 target artifacts and or creatures. Then we have Airbending Lesson that airbends target non-land permanent and then you draw a card. Valorous Stance. Target creature gains indestructible until end of turn, or you could choose to destroy a target creature with toughness 4 or greater. Then we have Rocky Rebuke, which is a 2 mana instant. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature an opponent controls. Allies at Last is a similar effect. It has affinity for allies, so it costs 1 less for each ally, so you can probably cast it for 1 green mana. Up to 2 target creatures you control punch a target creature an opponent controls. Zuko's Exile is a 5 mana colorless instant lesson. Exile target artifact, creature, or enchantment it controls. Its controller creates a clue. This is good to deal with some pesky indestructible permanents. Next up, let's look at some sorceries. Tale of Momo is a 3 mana tutor. It costs 2 less if a creature left the battlefield under your control this turn. Search a library for an ally creature card, reveal it and put it in your hand. If you search, shuffle. Then we have Destined Confrontation, 4 mana sorcery that says each player chooses any number of creatures they control with total power 4 or less, then sacrifices all other creatures they control. So a very powerful board wipe. Avatar's Wrath, 2 and 2 white pips sorcery. Choose up to 1 target creature, then airbend all other creatures. Until your next turn, your opponent can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hands, and then exile this card. The idea of this is you protect Katara, airbend a bunch of your stuff so you can cast them for free now or in the next turn, but until your next turn, those airbend permanents cannot be cast by their controllers. Also, commanders cannot be cast until next turn because you can't cast spell from anywhere other than their hands. So that's a very powerful effect. United Front is an X spell, especially if you have the Great Divide Guide where all your allies can tap for mana. This X can be huge, and what it does is create X 1/1 white ally creature tokens and then put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. So you will make a big army and make them big with counters. Very powerful card. Uncle's Musing is Graveyard's Recursion, 2 and 2 green. It says return up to X permanent cards from your graveyard, where X is the number of colors of mana spent to cast that spell, and then it exiles itself. So you should be able to get up to 3 different cards, because you would use Azorius and green, and with your commander's colors you should be able to get 3 cards. Next up, let's take a look at a couple of enchantments. We have the Legend of Yangchen 5 mana saga. The first chapter says, starting with you, each player chooses up to 1 permanent with mana value 3 or greater from amongst permanents your opponents control, and then you exile them. So this protects your permanents. Nobody can choose your permanents. Second chapter says, you may have target opponent draw 3 cards. If you do, you draw 3 cards as well. And then finally, you can exile it on the third chapter and return it transformed as Avatar Yangchen, which is a 4/5 flyer. When you cast your second spell each turn, airbend up to 1 other target non-land permanent. So very powerful effect. Next up, we have Team Avatar, which is a 3 mana enchantment. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. Again, you probably will have 5 or 6 creatures at one point, and that gives a huge buff to your single attacking creature. Or you could pay 2 and 1 white to discard this card and deal damage equal to the number of creatures you control to target creature. So it has multiple abilities, and that makes this a good card. Next, we have Planetarium of Wan Shi Tong. It's more there for the flavor. It's a 6 mana legendary artifact that for 1 colorless you can scry 2. However, when you scry or surveil, look at the top card of your library. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Do this only once each turn. Look at that card after you scry or surveil. So it's very important to note that you can scry away something and then cast whatever is on top of the card or top of your library and cast that. So it's a decent effect to cheat in some good cards. Next up, let's talk about the non-basic lands. They did print Dark Depths and Thespian Stage, so I had to go put it in. Dark Depths enters with 10 ice counters. For 3 mana, remove an ice counter from Dark Depths. When the Dark Depths has no ice counters on it, sack it. If you do, create Maritlage, a legendary 2020 black avatar creature with flying and indestructible. The skin here is called The Boy in the Iceberg. This by itself is very slow. Thespian Stage is a land. For 2 mana, it becomes a copy of target land, except it has this ability. But the important part is if you copy Boy in the Iceberg with it, it doesn't copy the counters and just becomes Dark Depths. You would have to sack the original to the legend rule, and then if you have 3 mana, you can sack Thespian Sage to get your Maritlage or Ang Awoken Avatar, which is a 2020 flying indestructible. Next, we have Fabled Passage. Once again, Avatar artwork, very, very pretty. Abandoned Air Temple that enters tapped unless you have a basic. It adds a white mana, or for 3 and 1 white, it can put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Basing Say enters tapped unless you have a basic. It adds green mana, or for 2 and 1 green, you can Earthbend 2. Secret Tunnel, it cannot be blocked, meaning if it was Earthbend, you would be able to damage your opponent. Or for 4 mana, 2 target creatures you control that share a creature type can't be blocked this turn. So your allies, you can make 2 of them unblockable. Tarnished Citadel deals 3 damage to you to add 1 mana of any color, or just adds colorless. Rumble Arena says Vigilance. Once again, the intention is if you Earthbend it, the creature will have Vigilance. When it enters, scry 1. It can add 1 colorless mana, or it can filter your mana. Jasmine Dragon Tea Shop adds colorless mana or adds 1 mana of any color. Use it only to cast an ally spell or activate an ally ability. And for 5 mana, you can tap it to create a 1/1 white ally creature token. Then we have some tap lands. We have Kyoshi Village and Meditation Pool. They enter tapped. For 4, you can sack them to draw a card. Then you have the Thriving Lands from the jump starts, and you can choose the other color that is not there on the land when it enters tapped. So that is our non-basic lands, and finally we run a bunch of basics. For flavors, we have chosen to put full art Appa lands here. In all of these there is a Appa artwork that you can see. Appa is flying in the background. Very beautiful lands. And that's it for the deck. This is 2 out of 3 like I said earlier, and it can be really powerful if you get a good set of the airbend allies early on. The airbend loop is very interesting. So yeah, I hope if you build this deck you have a lot of fun with it. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there are some improvements I could have done within the set. Thank you so much for watching.